Welcome to my EDU 709 project. This project is about creating and using digital portfolios using Google Sites. So my name is Meredith Nickerson, and while I've been a sixth grade classroom teacher and for the past 3 years I've been a technology coach for my district, this next year I'm actually moving back to the classroom because I really miss the teaching. And I'll be teaching third and fourth graders a digital literacy class. We're going to be covering a lot of topics, everything from coding to computer science to digital citizenship. But through all the topics that we're covering in this curriculum that I'm kind of creating from scratch, my students, I really want them to create a lot of digital media. It may be an online coding project, it might be a slideshow, but I really want students to understand tools that can help them creatively share what they know. I'm hoping to work with classroom teachers a lot this year so that we can take those traditional, poster board projects and turn them possibly into a more digital type project as well. So I anticipate my students creating a lot of digital work this year. And as such, I really need a spot where students can share their work. I want them to be able to pick out their best projects and the things they want to showcase, and I want them to have a place to put it. And more than just a digital place to put it, I want them to be able to share it to a broader audience. So often students' projects just kind of go to the teacher, gets a grade, gets turned back in, and that's that. But I want my students to have a wider audience, whether it's their peers or whether they can share what we're doing in digital literacy class back to their homerooms and their teachers, or maybe even to their parents. I want students to have a broader, more authentic audience for their work. So as I said, they'll create a lot of digital content and I need them to showcase that. And I really, truly feel that when they have that broader audience, they really benefit from that. Students put a lot more effort into their work and seem to take a lot more ownership in their projects when they know that it's going to be more than just the teacher who has their eyes on their final work. I think not only does it give them that motivation, but it also improves their engagement and it just makes the work that they're doing more meaningful to them. So in order to do this, I kind of played around with some different tools, but ultimately I settled on Google Tools. Part of the reason is that we will have Chromebooks in our classroom. Our third and fourth graders are actually one-to-one with our Chromebooks, so every student will have access to that. But the Google apps are great. They're free. There's lots of different tools to use. You might know of Google Drive, which is like online storage. But then there's Docs and Slides and Draw, which actually help students create digital content. One tool that a lot of people aren't as familiar with are Google Sites. The old version of Google Sites has been around forever, and it's clunky and not great, and I'm not a huge fan. I've created a lot of websites with it, and it's just a lot of work. However, the new Google Sites, which came out last year, are awesome. It's really, really simple to use. It's like drag and drop. You'll see in a minute. It's a lot like Weebly, if you've ever used that. I think it's so simple that I feel confident that third and fourth graders can actually use the new Google Sites. Actually, and in this presentation, both my lessons are centered around the idea of a digital portfolio. So the first lesson is all about creating that portfolio. Lesson number 2 is about taking a project from something outside of the Google tools. I'm going to do a coding project from the Scratch website and putting that in the digital portfolio as well. So students will need to actually have a completed Google project. They will also need to have a completed coding project on Scratch for lessons 1 and 2. And obviously students will need Chromebooks to access this. Before I move on, the benefits of Google Tools is they are accessible across all kinds of devices. You can open Google Tools from desktops, laptops, smartphones, even tablets. Now, granted, the smartphones and like iPads, using the Google Tools isn't as easy to do, but the benefit to using these tools is that, you can open and work with these tools across a bunch of different kinds of devices. So things students need to know, first of all, these lessons would not be first thing in my curriculum. First, I need to teach students how to use the Chromebooks and how to use the Google tools. For our third graders, it's the first time they have hands on a Chromebook, so there'll have to be some work with the Google tools ahead of time. And for the first lesson, they need to have something that they created with the Google tools, whether it's a document or a slide. They need something that they can put on that digital portfolio. So rather than me go through a bunch of screenshots on this presentation, I'm actually going to show you the tools and kind of talk you through how my 2 lessons would go. So first of all, students need to create a Google site for the first lesson. That's goal number 1. There's a couple of ways students can get to that. If they are in their Google Drive, they can click on the New button, and just like you might create a new Google Doc or sheet or slide, if you click on More, Google Sites lives right down there, which is really nice. If they're in their Gmail, they can click on this little app waffle, and you'll see Sites is right there. Or another thing that I prefer to do with students who use Chromebooks is I will ask the tech department to actually push the Google Sites app onto their Chromebooks. Then it shows up on their start menu. I'm not filming this on a Chromebook, but there's a little menu down here where they could access their apps. If your students wanted to add this app on their own, if your tech department doesn't, ours has a white list of apps we can and cannot have, you can go to the Chrome Web Store and just search for Sites and go down to apps, and Google Sites is what can be added to Chrome or a Chromebook. So this is what Google Sites look like. You'll see that I have 2 sites right now, and this is the new Google Sites. This is what we'll be working with. A word of caution, if students go to Google Sites and it looks like this, these are the old sites, and you can see I've made a bunch of websites in the past through this, but this is not a very user-friendly platform. It's kind of clunky and not a lot of fun. So if students are in the classic site, they want to click on the new Google Sites to get to this. This is the new Google Sites, and you notice it looks like if you went to Google Docs or Google Slides, it has that same kind of format. And just like in Google Docs or Slides, you can add a new site by clicking on the plus button right here. It's as simple as that. Now, when a new site is created, in my first lesson, I outlined kind of what I want students to do to create their new site. The first thing they want to do is give it a title. So I'll call it Mrs. Nickerson's Portfolio. Obviously, you want to talk with students about appropriate titles. We want to make sure people know that this is their portfolio. Now, this is tricky and easy to miss, but right up here in the corner, it says Enter Site Name. This is like the most important step because this is actually going to be the name of their site in their Google Drive. So I'll call it Portfolio Test. Now, when I click off of that, you'll see it shows up here. And if I actually go back to my Google Drive and refresh, it'll show up here in my recent documents. There it is right there. So that's actually the name that it gives it when it lives in your Google Drive. Going back to my portfolio, the next thing we'll want to do is customize it a little bit. You can notice that you can change the image, and you can either upload one or select one. For my 3rd and 4th graders, when we start, I'm going to have them select from the preloaded gallery because these are all school appropriate. They can pick something that looks interesting, and it won't take them a long time to search for an image and find the perfect one. They can just kind of pick one quickly. Now, eventually, as they customize their site and as we use the portfolio more, I'd be fine with them uploading their own image as long as it's school appropriate and it's not too obnoxious. We just want to make sure it kind of goes with the theme of their portfolio. We want it to look as professional as it can be for a 3rd or 4th grader. They can also play around with the text. One of the major drawbacks with the new Google Sites is when it comes to text, like these are my 3 options. I can't change fonts. I can't change colors. I can't change the size that much. It really limits that. So I feel very strongly in students being able to customize their sites and making it their own, but they're kind of held back because of the limitations here. Then again, simple might be a good thing. It keeps us moving and focusing on the portfolio itself. So we'll just say we're good with that. Now, in my first lesson, I have them actually click on text box here and just give us a quick introduction. So I might just say, welcome to my portfolio. I might ask students to write a few more blurbs about why it's here and what the purpose is. And then the next step is I want them to actually share something from their Google Drive, a project that they've already created. To do that, it's so simple. They come over here and they can either go from Drive, or if they know it's a Google Doc or slide, they can actually pick from one of the Google Docs. So I'm going to go to Slides, and I'm just going to find an old slideshow that I made. Let's just go to this one right here. This is a presentation that I gave to our school board last year. So you'll see the cool thing about Google Sites is all I had to do was click on that and it plopped it right in here. I mean, you can actually scroll through. I don't know if it'll let me as I build, but if I was on the actual site, I can actually click through the slides right here on the website. I don't have to follow a link or anything. It's so nice. Another thing about this I can do is I can obviously reposition it. I can resize it if I want. And it's just so intuitive. It just kind of works really naturally there. Another thing that I might want students to add is a descriptor for each of their things that they put on their portfolio. So again, I can just go back up to text box and I can say, this is a presentation that I gave. Again, I'd probably ask for more details than that, but just for presentation purposes, that's how I might do it. Now, students can really customize, and that's something that I focus on the lesson. I want to allow time to let them play and let them set it up the way they want it. I don't want their portfolio to look exactly like mine does right now. I want it to be personalized to them, because then they feel like they own it and it's something that they're proud of. So they might choose to, they can just drag their text box over here if they want. They could change the text as much as, Sites allows you to. But I really want them to kind of make this their own. So I want to give them lots of time to play with that. The last thing that they'll need to do for this first sharing activity is they need to publish. To do that, they click on the publish button. Now, before I do that, this is saved. If I clicked out of this right now, it lives in my Google Drive. It saved all my changes. Nothing will change. But other people cannot see it until I click on publish. This is nice because students can do as much work behind the scenes as they want to, and they can do it over a series of days and then click publish when they're truly ready to share it. The downfall is if they forget to click publish, then people can't see their updates. So I'll click on publish. This is maybe the trickiest part. It asks them to pick a name that's going to go inside our school's domain within Google Tools. So I'm just going to call it Nickerson Portfolio. And that one's already taken because I was playing with it, so let's just call it Nickerson Portfolio 2. I could see this part being tricky. I have to think of some kind of naming structure for my students so that they can easily type something in and be done with it. This is really important down here. We want to make sure that this is only open to people in our school domain. If I click on this, it means their website can be viewed by anyone, anywhere. And because of FERPA and not wanting to share students' personal information, we're going to limit it to the Dexter Schools domain right now. So that means teachers can view it, their peers can view it, I can view it, but that's about it. Now, one of my understandings is that with the new Google Sites, you should be able to share a site with a specific email address. So their parents' emails are outside of our school domain. I haven't seen where that option is yet. I've played around a little bit, but I do want students to share their sites with their parents. So I'm going to talk with my technology director. It might be a setting with our document sharing, which is fine. If we can't change that, then my other thought is students could just log into their Google accounts and show their parents at home that way. So so that I might have to think about how to do the sharing of parents, but it's definitely something I want to look into. So I'll click publish, and now my site is live to anyone who has a Dexter Schools email address. Now, my second lesson is all about taking a project that doesn't live in their Google Drive and adding it to their portfolio. So for example, this is Scratch, which is an online coding program that's really great. And if students create a free account, they can go to My Stuff, and these are their projects. And right now it is shared. I'm going to unshare it just to show you what I talked about in my lesson. But let's say they were working on coding this little project that I have, and they want to share it on their portfolio. So the first thing they need to do is click share. And now this is the sharing page, and notice that they can write some descriptors about how to use it or some notes, and then they can share it. Now traditionally, when sharing this, when we click on embed, you can get a little embed code. And if you know about website design, basically this would be embedded in the website. Like you could play it right on top of the website. The issue with the new Google Sites is you can't do that. There is no option to embed actual HTML code, which really bums me out. In the old Google Sites you could, the new Google Sites you can't, which makes no sense to me. So instead you have to use this embed URL. So we have to get a web address. So what I'm going to have students do is copy this, you'll see there's the web address right there. You could also get it from the address bar, of course. And just paste it in. And here's the part that's a bummer. This is what it will show right here. Click add. It just shows text. Now it's a link, so when someone clicks on it, it'll take them to this page. But this is really not very impressive, right? So one of the things students might want to do is we might want to rename it. Let's say something like click here for my coding project. So that's that, but you still don't really know what you're looking at. So this is where I might challenge my students a little bit. I might have them add an image. They could either go to images and they could do a Google search and they could search for like scratch coding. Let's see what comes up. So there's a little guy that was in my project. I could maybe put that next to it so that they know that this is my coding project. Or for my really tech savvy kids, I thought it would be a great challenge to see if they could figure out how to take a screenshot of their project and then add it. So this is where there's going to be some collaboration involved. I don't want to give my students all the answers to tech, and for my kids who get done right away and it's too easy, this would be a good stretch for them. And then hopefully if a student could figure that out, like how to take a screenshot, they could then teach their peers. But I do want to make sure that my students know how we can add something externally. Now, this isn't always as ugly as this. I did want to show, depending on what website you're showing. So like, I'll give you an example. This is an article about some tech stuff we did at our school. If I copy this and go to embed URL and paste that, when I add this, it's going to take a second. See, notice it gives it a preview and it gives it a link. So depending on what link you're sharing, sometimes it looks much, much nicer than others, and you can resize it. That's huge. But so you really can play with some more than others. So it's kind of a bummer that the one tool I wanted to use has such an ugly link, but it is what it is. So that was my second lesson, how to share something from outside of Google Drive. I'm going to go back to my presentation now, and I want to talk just a bit about the benefits. So as I said, this lets students share to a much larger audience. It's much easier to use than the old Google Sites. It integrates with Google Drives and it auto saves everything. And those sharing features are nice because it really locks down the student work and it only makes it public to people you want to have see it. Some of the drawbacks of this are that it requires literacy skills, so they have to be able to read to a certain extent, and with our third graders that can be a little touchy, so I might need to have some peer partnerships to help with that. They do need that prerequisite of understanding Google tools. With the new Google Sites, as I said, it's hard to really personalize it with the fonts and things like that, and that students must remember to click publish for others to see it. Now for lesson 2, some of the benefits are that students could, they can share pretty much anything that lives online, they can share on their digital portfolio. And that gives a more comprehensive look at their work. We don't have to focus on just Google Drive files. We can share anything that they've saved online anywhere, basically. And it also gives them experience with working with web links, which is a really important skill. As I said, some of the drawbacks, that embedding feature is not great on the new Google Sites. I have high hopes that they'll fix that eventually, because I would love for them to actually embed a coding project right inside of their site so it lives there. And like I showed you, not all the links look great. So like the Scratch link, kind of ugly. So I don't know if they'll improve that or if it's just something we have to work around. And of course that requires more work to make it look nice. But I'm going to be an optimist and say that that can also be a good challenge for our kids. And the one thing that excites me the most about this is that this can be used across grade levels. This could work with pretty much any age group. For our younger ones who are not so great with text, I think that Seesaw is a great tool. I've used that one with younger kids, and it's another great way to do a digital portfolio. And that shares beautifully with parents at home and peers in the classroom. But it's also really important. I'm going to be a special areas teacher, so I'm in the same rotation as gym and art, and we're kind of an island in a school. I think if you're a special area teacher, this is a great way to share work with the rest of the school community and really give them a window into the work that's being done in your specific class. So that is my presentation. I hope you found it interesting and maybe even applicable to your own classroom and the work that you're doing. Thank you for watching.